Hi everyone, welcome to the second class. So today we are going to talk about some more basics about the biometrics which we continued from last week, and we will also look at some historical biometrical systems and how they evolved till date. So we will start with the identification systems. So you remember in last class I talked about identification systems. So what exactly these identification systems are doing? This is just telling you whether you are a true or a valid user or not. For example, if you want to log in into your Canvas, what do? You write your user ID and then you type your UFID, right? And then if it's correct, if it's matched correctly, then you can log into your account and then you can do whatever you wanted to do. But if there is at least one digit falsely typed, or if there is any one mistake in your user ID or anything, they will not allow you to log in your account. So this is an example of identification system. What they are doing is just identifying whether you are a valid user or not. So there are many kind of identification systems, but if you broadly classify them, you will see two major classes of identification system. One is the traditional one. You can also call this as non-biometric systems. And then comes the biometric ones. So the traditional or non-biometric identification systems rely on two things. Whether they depend on something which you are carrying or something you are remembering. For example, your passport, your Gator 1 card, this can be called as something you carry, like it's a physical card, a token which you are having with you, so that when needed you can just show that, hey, my name is this and this is the proof that I am this person. You just show your passport or your Gator 1 card. That's how you are getting access in so many things. Or something you remember, like the example I just told you about logging in into Canvas, that you are just typing your UFID, your username, and then the system allows you to use it. So the UFID is something you are remembering, you are memorizing the digits, right? So any physical token which you can carry to prove your identity is called as non-biometric or any traditional identification system. Or some password like your Facebook ID and login password, these are considered also as traditional or non-biometric identification system. But when you talk about biometric system, this is totally different from those. This is something which you don't have to carry physically with you, plus you don't have to memorize. Like I'm not memorizing what is my fingerprint here or what are the most important features of my face. This is something which is coming from me, like inside of me, like it's some biological property which is already carried by me wherever I go. This is not something where I am putting some extra effort to carry the information. But in traditional or non-biometric system, you have to make that effort to either carry it with you or you have to memorize that. So if you compare these two systems, you will see lots of advantages and disadvantages. So last time we talked about these two systems. Now again I just gave you a small recap of the both systems. And if you compare the biometric systems with the non-biometric or traditional systems, these are the advantages you will see. The first one is it discourages fraud. Like how it discourages fraud? So you see, this is something which is very difficult to steal or do forgery, right? Because nobody can just suddenly come up and steal my fingerprint or face properties. So it's very difficult to imitate somebody in terms of his biometric properties. So that's the reason it says that it discourages the fraud, because a fraud has to be, or the attacker has to be smart enough to do those kind of things. So this is not that easy that anybody can easily do. So that's the reason, but the biometric systems can provide you with enhanced security, it discourages fraud, and it cannot be easily transferred, forgotten, and also there's nothing you have to remember about it. So that's the another beauty of biometric systems, so that there is no chance that you will forget this. And also it eliminates repudiation claims. Now what does that mean? So repudiation means like denying something. So for example, okay, let me draw something. Suppose you have a watch list of criminals, okay? Now you have a suspect person, you don't know whether this person is a criminal or not, plus also whether he belongs to this watch list or not. Maybe this is a watch list for Gainesville area, that these are the criminals that have often been caught doing some criminal acts inside Gainesville. Now you got to know about this person. Now the police wants to know that whether this person is a criminal or not. Also, if he is a criminal, whether he belongs to this Gainesville area's watch list or not. So if you have his biometric property, suppose you have his face ID, you can just take that and you can compare his ID with all of the people's ID, right? And then if you see there is a no match with anybody, you can clearly tell that this person is firstly not a criminal, and second thing, even if he is a criminal, he might belong to some other crime zone. He is definitely not a Gainesville based criminal. So that's how you can eliminate that repudiation claim. Like even if he says that, hey, I'm not doing anything in Gainesville wrong, I'm a good person, I'm a nice person, still you can prove that he is lying, because you have his biometric property and you can clearly match with the other people and you can come to a very sure shot conclusion. So that's something you will get from biometric system, because if he had some other passport or some other IDs, they can make fake documents and they can bluff you. So that's the one of the biggest advantages which biometric system will provide you, but the other system can provide that. And the last one was imparts convenience. It's definitely very convenient because there is no hassle that you have to remember it or you have to carry it somewhere. It's always with you. So that's another advantage of biometric system. But biometric system has some disadvantages too. So the first one is output is matching a score instead of a yes or no decision. So if you have a ID or a password, if there is only one string or one letter is mismatching, the system will directly tell you that, hey, you are not the person, we will not let you log into the system. But in biometrics, this is a problem because the biometric system don't give you a yes or no answer. Instead, they generate a matching score. How do they do? Suppose this person 1 and the person X, this is the query person, they are the same person. When he was doing a crime, maybe he was wearing a glass and maybe he has some mustache in his face. But now he is trying to escape from the region. So he has he got a new haircut, maybe he made some false mole in his face, he just took off his glass and he is wearing some contact lens. So if you compare these two person now, whatever matching score you will get will be very less, right? Like if these two person had the same outlook the day he committed the crime and today, then maybe, so the matching scores are usually in a range from 0 to 1. So if everything goes right, like he did not change anything at all in his get-up, maybe he will get a matching score of 0.9 or maybe 0.99. But often people are not that fool. They actually do a lot of alteration in their look or in their property so that they can bluff the system. So that day it might happen that after that thorough makeover, when we are trying to match the people inside the watch list with him, we get a very poor match score, that is 0.6. So does that mean that this person is not in the list? No, he is still in the list, but the system has to be smart enough to understand the difference. So that is the problem, and that is a challenge for the biometric systems, that you have to understand this lines between the gap between the two matches, that this is the same person, just because he changed some of his biometric features, the matching score is now low. Now you have to come up with a threshold or some smart technique so that the system will still be able to understand that, hey, even if the matching score is less, I am pretty sure this person is the wanted person. So that is a very big challenge with biometric system, that they can't directly tell you yes or no. You have to do some mechanism, some smart technique inside your system so that it understands that you are doing a perfect recognition or not. So the second one is cannot be reset if compromised. Okay, so forget about this watch list. Suppose this is the biometric system for this class. Okay, so I made a biometric system for this class so that whenever you are entering, there will be a camera, it will capture your image, it will recognize you that, hey, this is a registered student, only he or she can take the class. If some attacker somehow attacks the database, he will steal all of our face properties, right? Then from these face images, he can do whatever he wants. He can make some fake Facebook IDs with that, he can make maybe face driving license with that, or maybe he can try to get into our bank accounts using our photo IDs. So this is a problem now, because if somehow the system is compromised, all our biological data, all our biometric data is lost. And unlike the password, you cannot just reset it, right? Like if I want to hack your Facebook account, I can just like come up with some ideas and I can try multiple passwords. That time you will get a message that, hey, somebody is trying to access, please change the password or tell us, is it you or not? So that time I will be concerned that why is somebody trying to log into my device and it's not me. So for providing more security, I may just update my password. But for biometric systems, if the system is compromised, how will you update it? Like, are you going to make some scars in your face or scars in your fingerprint? No, right? It's very difficult to like renew or revoke, or you can say that it's very difficult to reset your biometric properties, because it's something that you got by born. It's not something you made. It's not, you cannot fake it. So that is the problem. So how can this be fixed? We will talk about this in our last weeks, because that time we have a like dedicated 1 or 2 weeks for biometric template protections and how you can provide more security to biometric systems. That time we will know that still how we can come up with a new biometric data of ourselves. So currently this is a very big challenge for any biometric system. So the third one is biometric system itself could be attacked. Yes, definitely it faces less attacks or less problems compared to the traditional system, but there are incidents where people try to attack biometric systems, and there are very smart attackers also we have who have been able to attack the biometric system. So I don't remember the year, but there was an incident that somebody hacked the fingerprints database of FBI, which had 5 billion people's fingerprints. So just think, and the number is really huge now. I think they have now like billions. So if somebody again commits this kind of crime, all our identity is gone. Like we also even don't know that at some other end of the world, maybe somebody is playing with our biometric data and doing some crime, and we really don't know about that. So it's very important to have some security to the biometric systems as well. And last one is privacy concerns. So for biometric system, there are always some sensors which are always monitoring your or collecting your biometric data. So many people don't like the idea that why will some random cameras will capture my data always, or like there are many cameras in the streets. They are always like watching at you, and they are actually for surveillance. But still, if some attacker gets hold of that database, he can also take your data. Like he can track you that every day in the morning you are taking this route to your school, and then you are going to gym or something else. So somebody can easily follow you also. So there are privacy concerns also involved with any biometric system. So once you can take care of all these disadvantages, and still you can make sure that you are getting a very good recognition result, those kind of biometric systems are considered as a good or ideal biometric system. But it's really challenging to come up with some biometric systems like that. So okay, now we will talk about the biometric functionalities, or in which kind of application biometric systems are really preferred. So the first one is positive identification. So I just gave an example that login access as a valid user. Like if you have, suppose you want to use the Wells Fargo app in your mobile, or again you want to just check your grades from 1.uf, what do? You put your username, then you have to type your user ID, your getter ID, and then maybe if some password is also set, you just have to type those. This happens in a traditional biometric system. But if you are using a biometric system, you are just giving your either fingerprint or your face just to get the login access. Or just think about your regular cell phone, that in iPhone 8 or I think in iPhone 10 or 11, you have to give your face data. Whenever it gets the data, the system tries to understand, is it the valid user who has been enrolled from the very first day? If it finds that, okay, this person's data is matching with the enrolled data, then the phone will allow you to use the system. If not, then it will deny you, or it will say that try again later. So that's how this positive identification works. So the next one is similar, but it happens as large scale, which is called large scale identification. So it is basically used when you try to prevent issuing multiple IDs for a same person. For example, suppose you want to get your driving license. So you went to DMV, and then you told them that, hey, I want to get my driving license. Here is my information. The first thing they do is that they take your data, and then they make a quick search in the database just to see whether you are already given a driving license or not. Because these are illegal, that there are some specific IDs which can be issued only once, like SSN, then driving license, because if multiple times if it's issued for the same person, this is illegal. So they just make sure that you don't have any driving license till date. That time, when they get sure that, okay, you are a newcomer, then they will proceed towards the later things. But this kind of large scale identification can be very easily done with biometric systems. So this is another application. So the third one is that screening. So screening example is like the one which I said that suppose in airport, whenever you travel, you give your biometric data. Why? They just want to see whether you are in their watch list or not, because usually the cops or the airport authorities, they maintain a list of no flyers. Like there are some criminals who try to escape, and they try to travel so often from one region to another. That time they just quickly see that whether you belong to that non-flyer list or not. If you are in that list, then they will never ever allow you to fly. If not, then you are good to go. So all these are kind of like serving the same purpose, but according to the scale, like according to the purpose, they are named differently, like positive identification, then large scale identification, and screening. But there is one specific aspect of biometric that is not delivered by any traditional or non-biometric system. That is the negative identification, which I actually told. That is, the beauty of biometric system is it does not only tell you that whether you are in the system or not. It also tells you that, hey, you are not in the system, plus you are not any of this person. This property you can only get with biometric system. Not any other non-biometric or traditional system cannot do that. They will just tell you, okay, hey, you are not in that system. But biometric system give you an additional information that you are not even in the system, plus you are not even any of this person. Then the system can exclude you for further consideration from this. So this is a very favorite question of professor. He often asks this type of questions in exam. You may see this, that what is the one quality of biometric system which you cannot get anyhow by any traditional system. Then you can talk about this. So we will talk about this in details when we will go to the next slides. So yeah, so we can move on to the next slide. If you have any question, just stop me anytime. Okay. So now we will talk about the very popular biometric characteristics. So I may use these two terms interchangeably, trait So these four actually mean the same thing, like the property, like the face. Face, you can say it's a biometric trait, biometric feature, biometric modality, or biometric characteristic. So in books, sometimes you will find trait, sometimes it's called as modality or property. So they all mean the same thing. So now we will have a look at the popular biometric characteristics. So, okay. So the first one is fingerprint. Fingerprint is the oldest biometric property. Though it's old, but still it shows very good identification or recognition results. So it's still used in so many places. So and it's very popular for the same reason, because the sensors which are required to collect the fingerprint is pretty cheap. So it's a good fit for any system. Then the second one is palm print. So if you look very closely to your palm, you see that there are so many patterns. Like in finger you have patterns, you will find the similar patterns in the palm, and these patterns are unique for everybody. So that's the reason palm print is another good candidate for a biometric system. And the advantage of palm print more than fingerprint is, you see in fingerprint, like you are getting this from a very small region, but look at the palm, it's so big compared to the finger, right? That means it contains more information, it has more features. So if you have a lot of information about a person, you can maybe identify him in a more confident way. So that's the reason people often use palm print also these days as a medium of authentication. Then the next one is vein patterns. So if you look at this area of your hand, you can see there are veins. And vein pattern is also unique for everybody, so you can easily use your vein patterns to identify yourself. And the good thing about vein is, it's very difficult to spoof, because for face it's easy to spoof. As I said, I can just somehow download your photo from anywhere, like photos are available pretty easily in so many places, and then I can make 3D mask of that. Or I can easily make your fingerprint also, like I am touching so many surfaces. If there is any attacker in the class, he can easily grasp one of the prints and maybe he can make a duplicate fingerprint of mine. But what about the veins? If you want to duplicate my veins, you have to maybe make some bruise or change the vein patterns. I'm not sure whether that is even possible or not. So it's very difficult to spoof. So that's the good thing about veins, that vein patterns cannot be easily spoofed. So you can use your vein patterns as a medium of authentication, but the only problem is that, not a problem, it's actually a challenge, that it's difficult to get the vein patterns, because you cannot just see very easily the vein patterns always. You need expensive NIR cameras for that. So that's the problem. If you have some cost related issues, then you may not use this vein pattern as a biometric property for your system. Then comes the fourth one. It's called hand geometry. So does anybody go to Rec Center? So if you go there, you will see that they have this system. So first you have to give your UFID, and then they ask you to place your hand on the system, and what exactly the system does is it just calculates maybe the like length and the width of your fingers, the distance between your two fingers, or which finger is longer than the other one. It just basically grabs the patterns of your hand. So the hand pattern itself is a unique property for everybody, so this is also a biometric property. And then comes the signature. The way we sign is ideally should be different from others, so it is also another biometric property. So then comes the second biggest biometric property. So actually there are so many biometric properties, but the popular three or the big three are these: face, fingerprint, and can anybody tell me what is the last one? Iris, yes. Like most of the works are done on these three biometric features, because either they are very easy to obtain, or they give very accurate results, or a trade-off between these two, that may be not that accurate but not that expensive. So blend of these two. So these three are the most popular one. So here we have the like 2D image of a person's face. So this is also a biometric property. And okay, so the one next to it is a heat map of the face. So this is also another biometric property, but the problem is that the heat map itself cannot perform in very good results. But if you combine heat map with the regular 2D face image, the system gives very, very good result. So this is again a hot topic for research, that how people are combining their heat maps or NIR based face feature with the regular 2D images. That way you can have a very good recognition results in terms of like identifying a person. And the third one in the second row is 3D map of a face. So I think iPhone 10 or 11 uses this feature, so it's very difficult to spoof it, because a 3D image has a lot more information. If you want to spoof it, you have to have very good resolution image of the person, and then you have to make a map in such a way so that you may contain all of the information from that person. That's how you can spoof the system. So 3D face is another biometric property. Then another one is the ear. So the good thing about the ear is, whenever we are born and we grow up, the size of ear becomes large, but the patterns hardly change. So this is the biometric property that does not change when you age. But about the other biometric properties, you will see a lot of difference when you grow up with your like childhood face to your current face, right? After 10 years, maybe you will look again totally different. So there are many biometric properties that change a lot with time. That is the problem. But ear is the one which does not change much with time. So if you are asked that which is the biometric property that does not change with time, then you should say it's the ear, because the more you age or the more you grow up, it grows up to a certain extent, but after that it stops, and also the internal pattern inside the ear does not change. So it's a very consistent biometric property. The next one is keystroke dynamics. So the way everybody type with a keyboard is again unique, because the way I like hit a button and I put pressure on a button might be different from how she presses a button, or maybe I need more time to switch between one key to another key, but maybe she is faster than me in terms of typing. So the way a person types tells a lot about the person. So taking the advantage of that, we can consider the keystroke dynamics as a biometric property. And then there comes the dental record, which is surprisingly also a biometric property, but it's very difficult to get people's dental record, and people are not happy about that. So you will hardly see biometric systems which take dental records, because it's not convenient for regular use. But yeah, if you want to have like some very like serious level of security, like you are looking for a criminal and somehow you have to be sure that okay, this is the person, or maybe after an accident somebody just had so many bruises in her face, or her hands got burned that you cannot collect the fingerprint or face information. In those cases, dental prints are very useful, because like the tooth are very strong, they are not easily harmed like the other properties. So that time you can take care of this property, but usually in regular system we don't prefer having dental records as the medium. And then the next one is gait. So if your friend is coming from a very distant place, still you can identify him. How? Because you know the way he tilts his head when he is walking, or everybody has a specific posture of walking or like moving. So looking at that, sometimes we can easily understand that okay, my friend is coming, or okay, I know this is the person. Or sometimes we have lots of frictions when we walk, and some people just walk in such a way that I cannot hear any sound when they walk. So all these help you to understand whether this person is a specific person or not. So gait is also a biometric property. Okay, the next one is speaking. So I'm sorry, not speaking, voice. So it's difficult to visualize voice. That's why we kept a waveform of speaking. So our voice is also a biometric property, because the way we talk and the way we sound, these are quite different from the other people. So using these two properties, we can again easily identify a person. So voice is another biometric property. And there comes the Lamborghini of biometrics, which is the most expensive one. That's called iris. It's expensive, it's true, but it is the best biometric properties that is available so far, because it gives very, very accurate result when you are trying to identify a person with his iris properties. But there is a one very big, not one, actually two challenges with iris. The first one is that users cooperation. So it's very easy to get somebody's fingerprint or face, because no matter how you like push your finger into the fingerprint scanner, it somehow gets the features. Or if I want to have a picture of you, I can just take the picture from any angle, at least I will get some information. But if I want to get your iris information, firstly I need a very good NIR camera, plus you have to stare very very sharply to that camera. If there is like slight movement, if there is glare, if the illumination is not correctly adjusted, we may not get any useful information from the iris. So users cooperation is very much needed in the iris based biometric system, so that is a challenge. And the last one is, I think it's a vein pattern in retina. So the vein pattern in retina also tells a lot about a person, and also it provides some additional health information of a person. So this can be also considered as a biometric property. So these are actually the common ones. There are many more biometric properties, like a person's odor is also his biometric property. Like if I use a cologne and if you use a cologne, still we will not smell same, because that's a unique property. Everybody has some specific odor of their self. So that is a biometric property. And then another can be tongue print. Our tongue print say very unique things about us. But these are very difficult to capture, so we don't use this as a regular biometric system. If you search, you will find a lot more biometric properties, but just remember that the major three or the common three are face, fingerprint and iris. We will also have very detailed discussion. In fact, we will have homeworks and projects on face, fingerprint and iris in upcoming weeks. So we had a quick look about all the biometric properties which are very commonly used. So if you want to classify them in two categories, there will be two major classes. One is the physical characteristics, one is behavioral. So from name, I think you are understanding that physical characteristics, again characteristics means modalities or the biometric properties. These terms are used so often. So physical characteristics are those like which biometric properties you can touch, you can see, you can feel easily. Like your fingerprint, you can see, you can touch, you can visualize it, your face, then your hand geometry, vein pattern and so many things. But behavioral ones are difficult to see or difficult to quantify. You have to feel it, you have to come up with another way to take the measurements. For example, your keystroke dynamics, your signature analysis or your gait. But there is one biometric property that is actually a bridge between these two. Like that has physical properties as well as behavioral properties, that is voice. So now how voice is having qualities of both. So it has a strong biological characteristics, because how you will sound, it is actually determined by your anatomy. There are some physical organs inside our neck and in our body that actually decides how will you sound when you talk. So that's how it's becoming a biological thing. And how it's becoming a behavioral thing, it means the way you speak. For example, when I see my friend, I just say hey, or maybe when you see your friend, you can just say hi. So you see, it's on us how we are going to talk. So the way you talk, this is totally behavioral, but the way you will sound, this is biological. And since voice have a blend of these two, so we can consider that voice is both a physical and behavioral biometric property. Am I going too fast? Okay, if you have any question, please stop me whenever you want. Okay, so we talked about so many biometric properties, and with those properties you can build a biometric system very easily. But the major operation, or how the basic units of a biometric system works, is pretty common for any biometric property. So I will draw a picture just to show you that how these biometric systems actually work. So any biometric system has two major steps while doing the operation. First is enrollment and second is authentication. So what happens in enrollment stage? Suppose you bought a new biometric device today for the first time, you are going to use the device. Or just think of your mobile phone, that you just bought the mobile from store. Now the mobile phone has to identify you as the user. So what you do, so you are the user now, and suppose you are X. So you will give your biometric properties to the sensor of the device. In order to achieve the biometric property from you, there has to be a sensor in your biometric system. So you can think of the entire thing as a biometric system. So this is the biometric system. So you need a sensor, like this is the bridge between you and the biometric system. The sensor just collects your biometric data from yourself and then pushes back to the next steps of the system. So if I want to collect face data, what can be the sensor here? Camera, right? And if you want to build a biometric system for voice, what will be the sensor? Microphone. Or if it's a fingerprint, then you need a fingerprint reader or scanner, right? So your sensor will be depending on the type of biometric data you are planning to work with, okay? So when you have the sensor, you will get some data, like maybe you got the palm print or your face or your fingerprint or iris, okay? So next, whenever you collect, the machine collects the biometric data, it has to extract the features from that. Now why is feature extraction important? You may have so many information in your hand, face or your, so here actually the data we get is called raw biometric input. Okay. So this is the very basic data, raw data. It might happen that you had some tilted face when I was taking your photo, or you did not place your finger correctly, so you got lots of noise in the biometric data. So whichever raw biometric input data the sensor collects from the user, it's not always good. In fact, in most of the cases, it has so many noise. And if you still continue working with that raw data, you will never get a good result, because you are like unnecessarily making the system confused. You are giving redundant information or false information about the person. So this step is very, very important, because the performance your system will very largely depend on this step. If you can pick very good features out of your raw biometric data, then you will definitely get a very good result. If you mess up in this step, no matter how good matcher you use later, you will not see the good result. So you will understand when I finish the whole step. So in feature extractor unit, we extract the good features. So like in general, we can say there are two reasons for that. First one is that we need to make it compact. We don't need all this information. We need just very compact information, but that information has to be like distinctive enough or good enough so that it can differentiate between you and me. But if you are just excluding all of the information and you are keeping very few, it may happen that the system just loses ability to identify you and me. Okay, so it has to be a blend between two, that it will remove some of the feature, but still it will keep those important features very intact, so that it can have a very good recognition result later. So once the feature is extracted, so suppose I can call this T1. So this is the biometric template, but after modifying the features, or you just like handpick some very good features. So once you are done with the feature extraction process, you will just send this feature to the database. That means user X is now enrolled in the database with name T1. Okay. So we never store any raw biometric data of anybody in the biometric system. That's another reason why biometric systems are secure, because if you just insert a person's like real face information, if somehow the attacker gets hold of the data, he will just steal all of our face images, right? But if you have some modified version of that, he is not getting the entire information. Maybe next time if somehow the system is compromised, you can get some different features for you, and that's how you renew or revoke, or you can recreate your biometric template. That means you can still come up with your another biometric template. So that's the reason feature extraction or modification of your raw data is very much important. And always remember, we never ever store. Let me see the time. Okay. 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 Thank you.
I'll take it twice at a time.
Okay, thank you. No, it's fine. So once you have that data, then you are just storing the data in the database. Okay. So next time, suppose you are done with the enrollment, now the device knows that okay, this is Mr. X and he is going to be using the device from now on. So next day, when you are trying to get access to the device, you will again come and you will give your same data, not same data, like you are again giving your fingerprint to the sensor. This time I will call this as X prime. The sensor will be again taking your fingerprint, and then you will use the same feature extractor to collect your feature. And once you have that thing, suppose now it's called T1 prime, okay? Then from database you will call the already saved template and then you will try to match. So for the matching, there are so many machine learning algorithms or classifiers available, like SVM you can use, or there are actually so many like CNN, ANN. So the matcher's duty is to perform a match between this one and this one, and whenever it will give a very high matching score, that means the device will understand, okay, this is my master, this is the person who was enrolled in the very first day, so it will let you use the device. So that's how you get authenticated. So there are two steps, right? Enrollment and authentication. In enrollment stage, the device just gets used to the genuine user, like who is going to use the system. And in authentication stage, you are a returning user. So it may happen that the query person is not you. Suppose I somehow stole your mobile and I'm trying to access there. So now I'm Y, not X. So I will also go through the same procedures, but the matcher will be smart enough to understand that okay, this person is not the same person. So whenever you will try to match T1 versus suppose TY is my new query data, the matching score will be very poor. So that's how you will not be authenticated anymore and the device will block you from using it. So this is the like general system, how any biometric system actually works. And always remember this step is very important. And there is also many machine learning techniques to do that, like you can use PCA or LDA. So I think there will be a homework on this, so maybe professor will go in details about PCA or LDA when you have to do the homework. So biometrics is actually not new. Like from last decade, we had very like simple type of biometric systems. Maybe they were not this much sophisticated as we have with us in current days, but yeah, there were many biometric systems. For example, in 1882, there was a system called Bertillon system, and in Bertillon system, people were enrolled in the system in terms of their face image, and then there were measurements taken from their one arm, their one leg, but those were very like basic measurements, like the height of the leg or maybe the width of the arm. That's how people were enrolled in the system. And then we had some fingerprint classification method already in 1900, and also there was some automated fingerprint identification system that was built by FBI in 1965. That had actually huge number of people's fingerprint data, but like recently the number is very huge. And is the class over? Okay. Okay, so I think professor will pick up from this this section from next week. Thank you.